Welcome to the Interesting Lawyers Podcast. Today's guest is 36-year entertainment lawyer, John Bradley. John, what is Taylor Swift's beef with Ticketmaster?
Taylor Swift's beef with Ticketmaster was their platform collapsed and failed when she released her tickets to the Eras Tour. Platform is the website for Ticketmaster worldwide for people to log in, get their tickets, be 2,000th in line and all of that. And it just collapsed under the weight of all those people.
Didn't every one of her concerts get completely sold out anyway, notwithstanding that screw up?
Sure, but who bought the tickets? Was it computer bots? Was it ticket agents that are looking to resell? Or was it the girls across the world that are dying to see this star? And that's what I think got Taylor so pissed off, because these are her fans, and they're all lined up to get these tickets, and they got dumped upon. And Taylor went at Ticketmaster, and of course, it's not going to pan itself out in civil court, but she got louder and louder with that. And my theory is that we only hear from the Department of Justice now because we're under 180 days before the election. And the Swifties are a significant block of people. Biden and his administration has been looking for an endorsement from Taylor Swift. She hasn't given him one yet, but I think the Department of Justice is pushing in that direction.
So you think it's more than a coincidence that this matter gets filed months before the election?
Especially when we've waited 14 years for it to happen, yes.
Do you think there's any merit to it aside from the suspicious timing?
I think there probably is merit to it, and there has been merit for a long time. People have been after that for at least the last 14 years, and all of a sudden the Department of Justice is coming after that, talking about maybe trying to break it up as a monopoly.
Why do they think it's a monopoly? What's their argument?
Because there's pretty much one-stop shop for getting tickets, and it's one price after another stacked on top of it. Pearl Jam started fighting them, 25 years ago, and many artists have fought them along the way. The latest has been, of course, Taylor Swift. Now,
I have found Ticketmaster's practices over the years to be offensive, because only at the very end, once you've secured the tickets, once you've looked at the map of the stadium, once you've agreed to the face price of the ticket, then the bad news comes, the service charge, and then some convenience charge and every other charge. And next thing you know, you're paying like $30 a ticket more than they were asking.
I know.
So is that part of the antitrust case that's been brought against them? Because maybe there's something to that part of it.
I think so, and I think the technical word for that is bullshit. Because, come on, there have been many acts over the years that say, I don't want my people to pay that. Kid Rock did a tour a couple summers ago. He says, the tickets are going to be $20, and that's it, period. But all of those charges, they're just nonsense, and Ticketmaster just makes money on top of money on top of money. But they ran into a big problem with Taylor because they promised her that platform was going to happen, and they knew what kind of demand they would have for the Eras Tour. To see a major act, you're going to have to pay Ticketmaster. And if it's one-stop shop from beginning to end, that's pretty much the definition of monopoly.
Ticketmaster is owned by Live Nation, right?
As I understand it, yes. One of the problems for a monopoly is they control the business from beginning to end. Live Nation owns the venues. So you're paying from the beginning with your ticket all the way through the use of the venue, how much the venue gets from the t-shirt, how much they make from this and parking and all that. So they're getting paid from beginning to end.
It sounds just like Disney World. What's wrong with that?
From an antitrust point of view, you're talking about in the United States, an entire nation where one can not get to a concert venue without passing through Ticketmaster.
So you think they should be broken up?
And
by the way, when companies get broken up for antitrust reasons, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
The whole rule and laws behind that are supposed to be to benefit the consumer. So the consumer has some place to go. The consumer needs a different place to go. And they go to Ticketmaster or Billy's Tickets or whoever it's going to be, give somebody else a chance. But if you own from the beginning of ticketing all the way through the venue, you've got the whole thing pretty locked up.
Yeah, and you're a genius. Hats off to Live Nation. I think they are a defendant in the antitrust litigation that got
I assume you're probably right.
Sounds like they have a monopoly anyway, whether they're being sued or not, right?
Probably do.
All right, John, let me turn to some more current events, please, if we may. And let's start with Diddy. The search warrants were served on his homes. He has been sued by, I think, now 2 more alleged victims of sexual abuse. There's been no further action by the feds. And what other information do you have? How has this affected Diddy from the back-end business point of view?
I think it's affected him very significantly. In addition to the settlement that he paid to, I think her name is Cassandra, the first girlfriend, a couple months ago, he's lost massive endorsements. I believe his management or agency has let him go.
You said they were not showing him anymore on their website as a client?
No,
right?
They're shutting him down fast. This Me Too is a guillotine, and it drops hard. And I mean, look at that video. A lot of people have looked at it. What you saw is something, but he came back and he pretty much admitted it in his mea culpa video. You're not walking too far from that once you say mea culpa.
So you're referring to the surveillance video that one of the news outlets got a hold of, put it on their webpage. Everyone saw it. Apparently Diddy had denied that even happened, and then he immediately apologized once it became public. That just happened in the past week.
Yeah, a couple of days ago.
The fallout is already beginning on the business end of it.
It is, and I think the last lawsuit came after the video. Do we see a couple of more? Maybe. I think the fact that the Cassandra lawsuit settled 1 day after filing is pretty telling, and the word seems to be that there was fear that video would get out, thus the quick settlement. But
timing is everything when it comes to matters like that, and I know that, having sued many celebrities myself back in the day.
Timing is absolutely everything. If you can line it up before the big event happens, before the Grammys happen, before this happens, or yeah, absolutely. But Diddy's writing some big checks these days.
Scarlett Johansson suing OpenAI, I think it is, for stealing her voice. Is that the allegation?
So I think so far they're just allegations. I don't think that there's a lawsuit quite yet. But what she's saying is, I think it's ChatGPT has duplicated her voice for one of its, I think they call it like a live vocal response, something like that. And the most interesting parts of that are the owner contacted her in advance, asked her if she'd do a contract. She passed on it, followed up again, and a couple of days later released this new voice that her people think sounds exactly like her.
First of all, you're an intellectual property lawyer, so tell our listeners, does Scarlett Johansson own her voice?
She does own her voice.
The sound of her voice.
The quality of her voice.
How is that defined?
It's very tough to define, especially a voice.
Stop being such a lawyer. Answer the question, counselor.
The closest place that you're going to find it was a case on Harley Davidson, where they found trade dress rights in the particular sound of the Harley Davidson mufflers.
In plain English, what you just said.
A sound engineer and a linguist could put together a mathematical scenario that says this voice matches up with that voice. And when the owner of the company keeps reaching out, come on, do it, come on, do it, come on, do it, and then a couple of days later it's out, that can fall under our Lanham Act for deceptive and unfair trade practices, and we'll see if that turns into a lawsuit. I understand he took the voice down immediately, and this afternoon an agent came out saying, I represented the voice talent who actually did that recording, and it was done beforehand. Maybe true, maybe not, don't know.
So they could produce a live human witness with a voice that's very similar. And if that turns out to be that person's voice, does Scarlett lose the case?
I think she does, yeah.
So why not just, to avoid all of this, why don't they just change a few things here and a few things there in that equation? Turn 4s to 5s and 3s to 2s and whatnot, and just change it ever so slightly.
I think that they're poised to do that right now because they took that voice down right away. So if they want to tweak it or they want to do what they're going to do they end up writing her a check? We'll see. But
my point is, if I can think of that, I'm not even in that industry, why isn't that something that they thought about and did so that they would never get sued in the first place?
I think that they probably did all of the homework while they were trying to get her on as an endorser. And when they couldn't get her to do it, said, let it fly. Let's see what happens.
You've had some really cool clients, entertainment law clients, that you've represented in your time, including but not limited to DiMeola, Clarence Clemmons,
Members of the band.
okay, Destiny's Child.
No, that's Desmond Child, one of the greatest songwriters who's ever written a song.
What songs has he written?
Wanted Dead or Alive, Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, huge songwriter. Great guy from Miami Beach.
Wow. Jose Feliciano,
The man.
Marilyn Manson.
Oh, no, Gidget Gein from Marilyn Manson. And
Rick Derringer from Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo.
just talked to Rick this week. What a guy.
Nigel Dick, the legendary songwriter.
Legendary videographer and director, Hit Me Baby One More Time, Welcome to the Jungle.
And members of Judas Priest and Twisted Sister.
Oh, yes. Actually represented Twisted Sister in a little lawsuit. And Richie Faulkner from Judas Priest, just the coolest guy you ever want to meet. That guy, what a story.
John, who was your favorite client after 36 years of practicing as an entertainment lawyer?
It's hard to remember all of them. Richie Faulkner from Judas Priest, the lead guitar player, is just the coolest guy that you want to sit down and knock out a Guinness or two with. But I mean,
What's his backstory?
oh my God, he's playing in London, and KK, the old player, decided to retire or leave, and they put out auditions, and he shows up, boom, done in one shot. He's a lot younger than everybody else, but man, he adds a fire to the band that's just really incredible.
And as a person, as a client?
Just the sweetest guy you ever met. And funny, he got married to George Lynch's daughter. Lynch is a rock and roll guitar player god and live in Nashville, and just the sweetest guy.
So what kind of work have you been doing for these rock stars over time, over the years?
Essentially both transactional and litigation work. Transactional, you do a record deal, a management deal, publishing deal, endorsement deal, those sort of things. And litigation, that can be anything from a dispute in a tour to a problem with the manager to somebody owes somebody money.
But you've seen it all, haven't you?
I've seen a lot, Russ.
So does every rock and roll star need an army of lawyers like you?
Oh my God.
Or are you the one-stop shop?
I think I'm the one-stop shop in South Florida, thank you. But no, everybody in the entertainment business needs a team around them. And there's got to be one lawyer, perhaps more lawyers in different jurisdictions, and a whole team around them.
Back to Judas Priest real quick. Are they still on the road? They still playing?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
How old are they?
Most of them are into, I think, early 70s. Richie just broke 40, 41. But Richie's story is amazing. The quick story on Rich is he's playing a show in Kentucky a couple years ago. Big final, massive 8-minute solo song. And halfway through, his heart explodes into, literally, finishes the song, gets taken off in paramedics, stitches heart back together. He puts himself back together and he's back on the road again. There's a Stones song about if I rip my heart out on the stage. He did it.
That's a lyric
I know.
in the song It's Only Rock and Roll, but I Like It. True?
Yes, definitely. And Richie lived it.
Amazing.
Absolutely amazing, and just a sweetheart of a guy. He's all of the things that you want, because you want to have some warmth and somebody that you'd knock back a burger and a beer with. Because oftentimes, you know, your heroes, you meet them and, yeah. But no, not Rich. Rich is a great guy.
So I know that more broadly, you're an intellectual property lawyer. You do entertainment law, which includes more than just music. I know you have a focus, a concentration on music, but what other types of media have you played in the sandboxes of?
Anything from fine arts to photography. I've put together some TV series. I've built some of these game shows, a la Idol type things. It's been pretty broad.
And it also sounds like fun.
Man, I had a great time, Russ. I really did. I worked hard. And sometimes the clients are a lot. They definitely, if they have a problem with the girlfriend, they want to call you at 2 o'clock in the morning.
So you still get those calls?
I don't get as many as I used to, but here's the problem with the entertainers. If you don't take that call, somebody else is. They'll do it.
In a
heartbeat.
They don't all have tremendous loyalty to you as a lawyer, or what is it? Or they just have a problem they need solved now, whether you're the one on the phone or not. Sounds like that.
It could go either way for sure, but I have found that with any high net worth individual, you need to solve their problems. And if you keep sending them to this law firm and that law firm, one time they're not going to come back.
This is true. So you're like a full service lawyer, is what you're saying.
Yeah, some stuff, I don't do bankruptcy work or what have you, but if it's within a realm of litigation or contract work, I'll do it.
Yeah. What I meant by full service is more like the relationship. And like I used to do anything for clients because it was the right thing to do. I always wanted to do the right thing. And I would tell them, yeah, I am bringing you breakfast because you can't do this or you're in the hospital or whatever. I'm a full service lawyer. And they always appreciated that.
No, I agree with you. I remember there was one client that I chased for 10 years. And I finally represented this guy, and he was a big name in the business. But I was talking to one of the big firms that wanted me to come over one time, and they said, let's talk about your billables. I said, okay, how do I bill that? How do I bill the 10 years that I chased this guy? Well, that's a good question, John. I'm like, well, thank you. But it don't work into your 2,200 billable hours a year either.
Yep. You've always been your own guy, though.
Oh, man, since 90? Yeah, I guess I have.
It's worked out for you okay?
Yep. And funny, I went to work initially with a solo out of Paducah, Kentucky. And a couple months out of law school, he gave me a jury trial and didn't go. He made me do it myself.
Who was the client?
It was a guy that owned a sailboat that he took it in for service and they couldn't put it back together. And I can remember my closing. You'll love it. I said, last of my cross, I said, let me just put it this way. You couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again, right? He said, no. And there's an old lady in the front of the jury box, and she did this. I said, yes.
That's crazy. So let me shift gears now. Before I ask you about some current events, there's a lot going on around show business, around music specifically, and not all of it good. But before I get to that, I just wanted to ask you out of sheer curiosity, and I'm giving away our age, but I have always loved Jose Feliciano. I have all of his songs that I like, which are many, on my iTunes. I listen to him all the time, and I miss him, and I don't think he's singing anymore.
Man, what a cool guy.
So I was going to ask you, tell us about Jose Feliciano as a person, as a friend, because I know that to you he was more than a client and for a long time.
Yeah, Jose, absolutely great guy, salt of the earth. It's funny, he has found one of his mechanisms, being sightless, for dealing with different people in different places. He uses humor. And he goes from one joke to the next over and over. There's only one problem. Most of the jokes are about blindness. So what do you do after the fourth blind joke, sitting in the back of the car with him? You laugh and giggle, but sweetheart, paid attention to his craft, killer player, and I think he's been playing since he was 15 or something. And consider that, blind. Somebody sits you on a chair and says, Miami, go.
Tell us what you represented Jose Feliciano in.
Jose had what I believe was the longest running post-judgment divorce action in the United States.
Why did it take so long?
First of all, it came out of Orange County, California. And the system in California is just about stopped entirely. So every month they call you back out to the OC and ask you what's going on with your case, and you're 73rd in line between people that are fighting over what time Billy got back from visitation on Saturday, and the judge has no idea what copyright law is, and so 1 month becomes 1 year, becomes 10, became 29. That's a lot.
I know that you practice in the area known as new media. Does that include and encompass things like AI and deep fakes and all of that?
Yes, streaming, when that phrase new media came out, and anything post CDs fell into that bucket for a while. Yeah.
But I understand that there are AI programs out there right now that will listen to a voice that you feed it and then have that same voice say anything that you want. So they've obviously converted the ability to do that, to make these equations into an algorithm, and now it's widely available. Mm-hmm. So anyone can do that right now, apparently, with anyone's voice.
And in the business, the lawyers are faced with a scenario where you have to work the contracts really tightly so that the labels or the production house doesn't own the ability to do that forever, related to any product or service that could be out there, because If they have those rights, then the rights never end.
So from a negotiating viewpoint, when you first get a draft contract from a company like that, you're telling us that they try to take full advantage.
Oh my gosh.
Especially, is that because sometimes these artists or these creators don't have lawyers or lawyers like you?
Virtually none of them, especially a startup artist, because they don't have the money for that. And one of the things the entertainment lawyers got to negotiate is some cash in the deal to pay the lawyer to do the deal. But I have made a very nice career out of myself for doing lawsuits for people that sign something without a lawyer. And the one thing we know about this business, there's no such thing as a standard deal. They don't exist. But with this AI stuff, it's even more critical because you can give away your rights to your image and likeness, your voice, forever to do whatever they want with. You thought you were doing this one movie or this one TV show, and now there's 27 versions of it for them and their assignees and blah, blah, blah. That can be very dangerous. And that's going to be hidden in the back of the contract, too.
Yep. So we had a guest on the podcast, Brent Britton. He's a transactional IP lawyer out of Tampa.
Okay.
And we were talking about AI, and he told us that AI is going to take out in large part transactional IP work. It's going to create and draft a lot of the documents. Not going to eliminate the need for lawyers like you, but it's going to change the way that you work. What are your views on that?
I don't think I disagree with that in part in terms of the transactional part, especially on the patent side. It's a pretty mechanical type of operation. You've got to be ridiculously smart to do that. But does there still need to be some kind of human element? I think so. The whole purpose of our patent law is to encourage more of that. It's funny how it became counterintuitive in and of itself, but I do think that AI is going to cut into a lot of the job market and the legal market significantly.
It seems to me that in the music business, a lot of it has to do with relationships and the strength of relationships that you have with clients, right?
Big time.
Obviously, AI can pretend to have relationships, but it's just AI, and they can never have that same type of warm human relationship with clients. How important is that in the music industry? And tell us, what's your advice to younger lawyers who are interested in working in your practice area, jumping in your pool as you're getting out to quote unquote dry off, which is a nice way of saying wind it down, retire, whatnot.
Right. Advice to the young lawyers. I think my advice over all of these years, God, you probably heard it many years ago, is the first thing you got to do is become a good lawyer. And it sounds a little bit dumb, but if you don't understand how to analyze a problem, analyze what your client needs, whether you're working in bankruptcy or entertainment, you're not going to get to it. So I think that these young lawyers need to become decent lawyers and then spend all of their free time learning what's going on, going through these contracts. I mean, I spent hours and hours when I was young, and we didn't have entertainment law in law school or copyright, and didn't have any of that in my school.
But once a lawyer becomes familiar with and gains experience in the entertainment law field, in the music industry, how are they expected to get clients? Tell us about the soft skills, the relationship side of this, relationship building in that industry.
On a transactional side, the lawyer needs to end up around these artists and creative types both at work and after work. So you're doing the scene with the clubs, you're doing the Naris and Grammy events, you're doing all of those things to be around these people that might need your legal services.
Is that how you did it?
Yeah, I did a ton of that when I was young, and a lot of time in the clubs. And I mean, I've played music myself since I was a teenager. Most of these young rock and rollers from Florida, I knew them anyway. And the cool thing about that is I love it. That's all of it. I love it from get-go to the end, and hanging around until they're loading in and talking to them at 2:30 in the morning was just how we rolled back when our hair wasn't so white.
Last question of the podcast, John. Tell us about some parties you've been to with some of these rock stars.
All right, here was one that's great. There was a concert. I represented the promoter over in Europe, and they did the party on the grounds for Highclere Castle, which is one of those shows out today. And they had two of the local lads benefit the fox hunting grounds, and they pull up this portable stage, and all of the ultra wealthy bring in their Range Rovers and have their staff serve them linen tablecloth style. And the lads were Steve Winwood and Eric Clapton. And so we're out in the middle of this field in front of the castle, and this is the reunion of Blind Faith 40 years later, and I end up behind the trailers with Eric Clapton saying, "Hey, Mr. Clapton, how are you?" A little bit standoffish, but Steve Winwood is like your oldest buddy in the world. "Miami, I love Miami, oh my God." Yeah, that was cool. And when they put the E Street Band back together in '01, I think, early '01, I got to stand on the stage in Meadowlands during sound check and dive into the limo with Clarence when the last song was ringing out coming off the stage. Yeah, I got to see some cool, fun stuff.
Great memories.
Man, good stuff.
I'll share a very quick Eric Clapton story of my own. I was always a big fan of his, loved his music. Went to see him in concert, and then he did an acoustic tour, and I went to see that as well. And within a year later, I was in the lobby of the Four Seasons Hotel in Chicago, and there's Eric Clapton. And I make that decision. Do I go up to him and say something or not? And realizing that life is limited and I probably won't have another chance, I went up to him and I said, "Eric, hi, how are you? I just want to let you know, I just saw you in your acoustic show and I loved it. Thanks, great to meet you." And he goes, "Oh, thanks very much." And in other words, I lied to his face. He did not play one song in that acoustic show that I even knew. As far as Layla, Bell Bottom Blues, all the other songs, he played all of that in the other concerts I've seen, and he's fantastic. He's a living legend. So I'm still glad that I got to see him, that I got to meet him, and that I got to speak to him. Not glad that I lied to his face, but I wasn't about to ask him what I really wanted to, which is, why didn't you play even one song that everyone knows acoustically? And I guess the answer to that is because he's Eric Clapton. He can do whatever the hell he wants.
That's exactly it. And you booked him for the show. He showed up. He's got to do an hour and 15. He's picking the songs. It's the problem that a lot of people in the seats have. Okay, I'm here to hear the hits from my favorite act. Don't play the new stuff. I don't want to hear the new stuff. But that's how they're selling the new record.
One question I forgot to ask you.
Sure.
Does Ticketmaster have anything to do with the outrageous price of Taylor Swift concert tickets? I'm not a fan in particular, but I did go on just to see what the hysteria was about, and I think I was on a Ticketmaster site. Thousands and thousands of dollars per ticket for the nosebleed seats, for the worst seats in the house. Yep. What's behind that?
Demand is mostly what's behind that. Ticketmaster definitely is behind some of it, but no, those massive prices are demand. And I just heard that the tickets in Paris were a lot easier to get than the United States. I tried to get some for some people in the United States, not a chance. But Paris, I understand you could get a couple of tickets. You were going to pay a lot of money for them, but her demand is absolutely astonishing. It's like Beatles, it's Led Zeppelin, it's Elvis. God bless her. Girl works hard, but the demand is unbelievable.
So it's a straight up supply and demand situation.
I think so, yeah. Ticketmaster is Ticketmaster, but that's not nearly the majority of that value.
John, can you get me free tickets to any concert? Can you get me backstage passes? What can you do for me?
We'll work that out after the podcast.
On that note, we're done.
Cool.
That's a wrap. Anyway, John, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your friendship, our relationship, and I'd love to have you back on. I want to do some panels, and who knows what's going to come up, but the way the music industry is alone, I know we're going to have a lot more to talk about. That's the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.